The smell hit her before she saw the mess. A sickly mix of sour coffee, greasy meat, and something sharp like vinegar and arrogance. Emily stopped just inside the sleek glass doors of Fairbrooke Corporate Tower, gripping the handle of her cleaning cart. Her gaze swept the pristine lobby. White marble gleamed under bright lights. Every corner was crisp, controlled. Everything looked perfect on the surface. But Emily knew better. The real dirt was always buried beneath smiles and suits. It had begun like any other Tuesday, but for Emily Grant, it was the first day of something far bigger. She rose quietly, the blue dawn just beginning to leak through the window blinds of her cramped one-bedroom apartment. Her son, Jaden, slept peacefully in the corner, curled beneath a blanket worn soft from too many washes. She moved barefoot across the cool tiles, making toast, slicing apples, and packing a lunch with her usual note. "You're stronger than you think." It wasn't just a job today. It was a test. A mission. A chance. Emily was 34. Tall and composed, with warm brown skin and dark, observant eyes. She moved with quiet precision, measured steps, shoulders back. Years of cleaning for the unseen had taught her to blend in, listen, and watch everything. She'd mopped floors in mansions, schools, and office buildings where people greeted her with, "Can you do this next?" rather than "Good morning." At Fairbrooke, she was officially Building Services Associate, but to most she was just the cleaner. She didn't mind the title. What she minded was being invisible. Today, that would change. 2 days ago, she'd received a call from a man named Michael Stone, the CEO of Fairbrooke. He wasn't like anyone she'd met before, well-spoken, sharply dressed, but his voice on the phone had carried a strange urgency. "Can you meet me at 6 a.m.? Privately. My office." She had gone. There, behind glass walls and polished wood, he told her exactly why she was really being hired. "I have a problem," Michael said, lowering his voice. "One of my managers, Ryan Blake, his work is excellent. But I've started noticing things, subtle things. The way he talks to people, the way others avoid him. I want answers, not assumptions." Emily sat still, letting him speak. "I need someone who can go unnoticed," he continued. "Someone who sees everything. Someone who understands what people like me sometimes miss." She nodded once. "I've seen people like Ryan before." Michael's eyes locked on hers. "That's why I chose you." Emily pushed her cleaning cart into the marble lobby, her name stitched neatly on her shirt. Her shoes were soft, the wheels of her cart smooth. She moved like a shadow, quiet, steady. People passed her by in tailored suits and pointed heels. One man bumped her cart and said nothing. A woman smiled awkwardly before pretending not to see her. Emily's face stayed neutral. She was used to being treated like part of the wallpaper, but this time she welcomed it. The elevator dinged, and from the far end of the corridor, a tall man stepped out. He wore a navy blue suit, the top button undone just enough to look casual. His hair was perfectly styled, and a gold watch flashed as he adjusted his cuff. He smiled when he saw her. "You must be Emily," he said, striding up. "Ryan Blake, middle management. But don't let the title fool you. I basically live here." He extended his hand, then quickly dropped it before she could take it. Emily offered a polite nod. "Nice to meet you." His eyes flicked over her uniform. "We appreciate everything you do here. Keeping things in order. It's not glamorous, but it matters," she smiled faintly. "I do my best." Ryan leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a syrupy tone. "Don't hesitate to ask for anything. We're all part of the same team here." He gave her a nod and walked off, his polished shoes clicking with confidence. Emily didn't move. She didn't need to. She'd already seen enough. Ryan's words had been friendly, too friendly. Polished, practiced, patronizing. He saw her not as a person, but as part of the service. Men like him rarely said what they really thought out loud, but they didn't have to. They showed it in crumbs left behind, in the way they held eye contact just long enough to establish power, in the way they made messes, assuming someone else would always be there to clean it up. Emily knew the signs. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, Emily stepped into a dimly lit side office. Michael was there, sleeves rolled up, reviewing files. He didn't greet her with small talk. "How's he behaving?" Emily pulled out her phone. "He's careful. For now," Michael frowned. "Keep watching, keep documenting. He'll show his hand," she nodded. "He already has. He just doesn't realize it." In the elevator ride back down, Emily thought of Jaden. The way he hugged her legs when she came home. The way he asked if they could go to the science museum next month. She wanted more for him, and not just more money, more respect, more fairness, more space to be seen. She wasn't doing this only for a paycheck. She was doing this to clean out something much deeper than spilled coffee. Over the next few days, Emily followed her routine. Wiping desks, scrubbing corners, changing bins. Every day, she passed Ryan's office. Every day, it got messier. That morning, the door to Ryan Blake's office was already open when Emily Grant arrived. She knocked softly out of courtesy, then entered, pushing her cleaning cart quietly across the plush gray carpet. The smell of stale takeout and coffee hung in the air. Her eyes instantly registered the scene. Discarded napkins, greasy containers, a tipped-over coffee mug bleeding a brown stain onto an open file folder. Ryan didn't even look up. From behind his sleek mahogany desk, he tapped away at his keyboard, the rhythm of his fingers sharp and relentless. The hum of his office felt cold, sterile, controlled. "Hey," he said casually, still staring at the screen. "Sorry about the mess. Things have been a little nuts this week." His tone was breezy, dismissive, as if he were acknowledging a light drizzle outside. Not the deliberate storm he'd created inside this room. Emily murmured a soft "no problem," then crouched beside the trash can. Her gloved hands began sorting the clutter, folding wrappers, picking up crumbs, wiping the sticky edge of his desk where some sauce had dried to a crust. She didn't look at him, but she could feel him watching her from the corner of his eye. There was a silence between them, not awkward, not uncertain. It was a silence of roles being reinforced. He spoke again, not bothering to lower his voice. "You know, I really appreciate having someone like you around. Someone who keeps the place in shape. Honestly, no offense, but most people wouldn't go the extra mile like you do." Emily paused for just a moment. She didn't respond. She simply picked up the tipped coffee cup and gently began blotting the stain from the carpet. Her hands moved with quiet grace, but inside, her breath tightened. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the way he said them. The way his compliments always came coated in a kind of sugary arrogance, like a pat on the head for a dog that sat when told. As if her hard work were a surprise, something he wasn't expecting from someone like her. She stood, her spine straightening slowly. For a flicker of a moment, she caught his eyes, calculated, distant, and then returned to her task. He grinned. He thought he'd done her a favor with that comment. Emily stepped out of Ryan's office and took a slow breath in the hallway. The air out here was clearer, colder. The glass panels of the executive floor stretched high above the city, casting long shadows on the polished floor. She made her way to the far end of the corridor, where a quiet conference room stood unused. The door was unmarked, just as it had been the last few days. She slipped inside and closed it behind her. Michael Stone was already seated at the long walnut table. The CEO looked up from a stack of printed reports and offered her a small nod of acknowledgement. No pleasantries, no small talk, just business, quiet and focused. "How's it going?" he asked, folding his hands calmly. Emily took the seat across from him, pulling her phone from the pocket of her apron. "He's getting bolder," she said. "Messier, too. Like he stopped pretending." She unlocked the screen and handed the phone to Michael. On it were photos, Ryan's office in varying states of chaos. Coffee spilled across paperwork. Pizza crusts left half-bitten on a glass coaster. Food wrappers piled in the corner of his desk as if the trash can 2 feet away didn't exist. Michael studied the images silently. His brow furrowed as he scrolled. And the comments? "Hey?" asked, not looking up. Emily nodded, her tone calm but sharp. Still subtle. Still coated in fake kindness, but it's there. Always implying I'm lucky to be here. Like I should be grateful he's acknowledging me at all. Michael leaned back in his chair, tapping. A finger against his chin. "Good. Keep documenting everything. Don't confront him yet. I want him to feel safe. I want him to drop the mask entirely," she wanted to argue. Every fiber in her body ached to call Ryan out. To stand in his doorway and say, "I see you for exactly who you are." But she held herself back. That wasn't the plan. And it wouldn't be enough. They needed him to bury himself with his own actions, his own words. "I understand," she said. Michael's eyes met hers. It's only a matter of time now. He's growing too comfortable. That's when they make their biggest mistakes. Emily gave a slow nod. She wasn't used to this kind of trust, especially not from a man like Michael Stone, the most powerful figure in the building. But he'd seen her, really seen her, and that meant something. For years she had worked under the radar, unacknowledged. But now her quiet eyes had power. Now her presence had purpose. The sky outside was gray when Emily arrived at Fairbrooke. The clouds hung heavy, threatening rain. Inside, the building buzzed as usual, phones ringing, shoes clicking, elevators chiming. But something felt different in Ryan's office. She could sense it before she even opened the door. When she stepped inside, the mess was impossible to miss. Crumpled sandwich wrappers littered the carpet. An energy drink had been knocked over, soaking into a paper tray of fries. A used napkin was stuck to the leg of the desk. Ryan was sitting in his chair, spinning slowly back and forth, phone in hand. He didn't look up. "Emily," he said, almost cheerfully, "you're a lifesaver. I've been absolutely swamped this week. Barely had time to breathe." She said nothing as she began picking up the trash. The wrappers were greasy, the drink sticky under her gloves. Each move was careful, practiced, but inside she was boiling. Ryan leaned back in his chair, watching her out of the corner of his eye. "You know, it's funny. People think the higher up you go, the easier it gets. But it's the opposite, really. It's a ton of pressure." He paused, as if waiting for her to agree. When she didn't, he continued, "I guess that's why everyone has a role, right? You keep things clean. I keep things running. Works out for both of us." Emily's hands paused over the edge of the desk. She rose slowly, met his eyes. There was that tone again. Casual, confident, condescending. She wanted to say something. She wanted to wipe that smug smile off his face with nothing but the truth. But she didn't. She forced her breath out gently and returned to her cart. Ryan smirked and turned back to his screen, convinced he'd just made a friendly point. He didn't know it yet, but he was walking into his own trap. As the last hour of the day dragged on, Emily moved from room to room, cleaning with steady hands, but her mind elsewhere. She wasn't just noticing dust anymore. She was tracking behaviors: who greeted her, who avoided her, who acted like she didn't exist. Her work had become something else entirely: surveillance through service. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through the high glass windows of Fairbrooke Corporate Tower, casting long gold lines across the executive floor's plush carpet. The hallway smelled faintly of wood polish and tension. The kind of tension that builds slowly, like a hairline crack in a mirror no one notices until it shatters. Emily Grant walked with purpose, though her face gave nothing away. Her cleaning cart rolled quietly beside her, wheels humming on the smooth floor. Inside her apron pocket, her phone buzzed once, a reminder she'd set herself. Meeting with M. Stone, 4:15 p.m. She stopped outside a discreet conference room tucked into the far corner of the floor. It looked unassuming, just another glass-walled space, but it had become their ground zero. She opened the door, slipped inside, and gently shut it behind her. Michael Stone, CEO of Fairbrooke, was already seated at the long table, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He was flipping through documents, a pair of thin glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. He looked up when she entered, offering a brief but genuine nod. "Emily," he said, "have a seat." She did. No greetings, no chatter. That was how they worked. Emily pulled out her phone and scrolled quickly through her gallery. She turned the screen toward him and slid it across the table. "It's getting worse," she said, voice low, steady. Michael adjusted his glasses and began swiping through the images. One by one, he examined the evidence, coffee stains spreading across financial reports, greasy napkins on a leather chair, food wrappers tossed next to not in the trash bin, and crumbs trailing like breadcrumbs across the carpet. Emily sat upright, arms folded over her chest. "It's like he's testing me," she said. "Every day a bigger mess. And his comments, they're changing. He doesn't even pretend to be subtle anymore." Michael paused on one of the images, a half-eaten sandwich sagging over the edge of a desk like a forgotten corpse. "He's getting comfortable," he murmured. "That's good. It means he stopped hiding." Emily nodded. "He doesn't see me as anything but the cleaner. That's all I've ever been to him." There was no bitterness in her voice, only clarity. Sharp, honest clarity. Michael set the phone down. "He thinks he's in control," Emily continued. Her gaze locked on his. "But the way he talks to me now, it's bold. Almost like he wants me to react. He's baiting me, waiting for me to snap." Michael leaned forward slightly, folding his hands on the table. "Have you?" Emily shook her head. "No, I've kept my cool. But he knows I'm frustrated. I think he enjoys it." Michael nodded, his eyes narrowing in thought. That's how men like him operate. They don't just say the thing, they push, little by little. They wait until it feels safe to speak freely. And by the time they finally do, it's too late to take it back. Emily's lips tightened. "So how much longer do we wait?" Michael exhaled, slowly, until he says something that crosses the line, really crosses it. "We need enough that he can't wriggle his way out with apologies and HR spin. I want something undeniable." Emily hesitated for a beat. Part of her hated the wait, hated swallowing her pride every day just to bait a trap. But she knew Michael was right. "I've got everything logged," she said, tapping her phone. "Photos, notes, timestamps, his tone, his words. I've got it all." Michael gave a small nod of approval. "Keep it going. He's going to slip. I can feel it." Emily leaned forward, her voice lower now, firm as stone. "When he does, I want to be in the room. I want to watch it happen." Michael's mouth twitched with a faint, knowing smile. "Oh, you will be. Trust me." The following day, it started out like any other. Emily arrived early, as she always did. She changed into her uniform in the quiet corner of the maintenance room and tucked her name tag into place. Emily G. Facilities. The building was just beginning to stir. Elevators chimed. Keycards clicked. People with fresh coffee and tired eyes moved through the lobby like ants in press suits. But Emily's morning didn't feel routine. Something in her chest fluttered, low and uneasy. By mid-afternoon, she stood outside Ryan Blake's office, gripping the handle of her cleaning cart with one gloved hand. She took a breath, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. And there it was, the wreckage. His desk was a battlefield. Half-eaten noodles still in the box. Chopsticks smeared with sauce. 2 coffee mugs, one completely appended on the carpet, brown liquid soaking deep into the fibers. Trash scattered across the floor like confetti. Ryan Blake was sitting at his desk, typing rapidly, eyes on the screen. "Emily," he said without looking up. "You're a lifesaver, seriously. I don't know what I'd do without you." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She began cleaning with slow, practiced movements, each gesture precise, controlled. She bent to pick up a tipped-over wrapper, her back straight, face unreadable. But inside, her mind was racing. How long was she supposed to keep doing this? How long would she have to scrub after a man who treated her like part of the furniture? She could feel his eyes on her. Watching, measuring. He was waiting for her to break. "I know it's a lot," Ryan said casually, pushing his chair back. "It's been one of those weeks, you know how it is." Emily glanced briefly at the mountain of trash he'd left. She straightened slowly. "You could try cleaning up after yourself," she said, her voice calm, controlled, but firm. She hadn't meant to say it. It had just slipped out. Ryan froze. The air shifted. His fingers paused above the keyboard, then lowered. He turned to her, eyebrows lifted just slightly. The grin he wore wasn't warm anymore. It was tight, edged. "That's your job, isn't it?" He said, his tone light, but with something hard underneath. "I mean, what would you do if I didn't leave anything for you to clean?" Emily didn't blink. "I'd still do my job," she said quietly. "But that doesn't mean you need to go out of your way to make it harder." Ryan let out a short laugh. The sound was sharp and dismissive. "Well, don't take it personally, Emily. I'm sure you're used to this sort of thing." And with that, he turned back to his computer, shoulders relaxed as if the conversation hadn't happened. Emily stood in the center of the room, her hand still on the vacuum handle. She clenched her jaw. She didn't respond. She wouldn't give him what he wanted. Because now she saw it clearly. He was getting reckless. His mask was slipping. And soon he would fall. By the end of the week, Ryan's behavior had evolved into something grotesque. Every day, a new mess. Crumpled papers tossed lazily on the floor. Coffee cups left in corners, dripping onto carpet and baseboards. Lunch containers discarded, as if expecting someone to appear the moment he was done. Each comment was sharper. Each compliment more condescending. "You really are the glue that keeps this place together," he'd said with a wink one morning, motioning to the overflowing trash can. "Don't know how we'd survive without you." Emily had smiled politely and kept moving. But the weight inside her chest grew heavier by the day. She didn't show it. But she felt it, a coiled spring tightening, a thread pulling taut. The hardest part wasn't cleaning up after him. It was enduring his slow, casual cruelty the way he tried to. Chip away at her dignity without ever raising his voice. That Friday, as the sun set, Emily stood once again in Michael's office. She laid her phone down on the table, eyes tired but focused. "He's pushing harder," she said. Michael scrolled through new pictures. Coffee stains, scattered takeout, a used tissue pressed between 2 reports. Emily's voice cut through the silence, and I pushed back. Just once. He turned cold so fast, I could feel the room drop 10 degrees. Michael nodded slowly. "He's close to slipping. We don't rush him. One more step over the line, and we've got him." Emily leaned in, voice steel-wrapped velvet. "And when that moment comes, I'll be standing right there." Michael gave her a small smile. "I'm counting on it." Friday afternoon draped itself over Fairbrooke Corporate Tower like a heavy curtain, the golden light outside battling with the fluorescent chill inside. But on the 11th floor, inside the office of Ryan Blake, the mood was anything but calm. The moment Emily Grant stepped inside, she froze. His office looked like a bomb had gone off. Pizza boxes lay open on the desk, cheese hardened and curling. At the edges, Half-empty soda cans stood like watchmen over stacks of stained paperwork. Crumbs were everywhere, embedded in the carpet, clinging to chair legs, scattered like seeds of contempt. A full coffee cup had been knocked over, its dark contents slowly creeping across the floor in a thick, ugly smear. And Ryan? He was leaned back in his leather chair, feet up on the desk, scrolling through his phone like he was lounging at home. He didn't look up. He didn't greet her. But the slight, smug curl of his lips told Emily that he knew she was there. And he was waiting. Waiting for her to clean it up. Waiting for her to say nothing. Waiting for the game to continue. But something in her snapped. Emily didn't move. Her hand gripped the handle of her cleaning cart. Her knuckles turned white beneath the glove. The room felt smaller, heavier. Her eyes lingered on the mess. Not the wrappers or stains, but what they represented. Disregard, ownership, a dare. "Ryan," she said, her voice even but firm. "You need to stop leaving your office like this." The words dropped into the room like a stone into still water. Ryan's eyes finally flicked up from his phone. His brows rose, and then there it was again, that grin. "Sorry, what was that?" he said, his tone light, mocking. "You telling me how to manage my mess now?" "I'm asking you," Emily replied, "to clean up after yourself." Her tone didn't rise, but it sharpened. "Every day I walk in here, and it's worse than the day before. And it's not because you're too busy, it's because you know I'll be the one to clean it." Ryan scoffed and tossed his phone onto the desk. "Oh, come on, Emily," he said, shaking his head. "Don't get dramatic. I'm sure you've cleaned worse." She did not move. She did not flinch. "I'm not asking for much," she said. "Just a little respect." Ryan's expression changed. The smile thinned. His posture stiffened. "Respect," he repeated, as if tasting the word for the first time. "You think you're owed respect because you wipe down some desks and take out the trash?" He leaned forward now, elbows on his knees, voice harder. "Let me remind you, this is your job. You're lucky to have it." Emily's heartbeat thudded, but she kept her eyes on him. "I do my job," she said. "But that doesn't mean you get to treat me like I'm beneath you." That broke something in him. He stood up. And for the first time, he raised his voice. "You think you're better than me? You think just because you've got a little attitude now, you're more than a cleaner?" Emily said nothing. "You should be grateful someone like me even speaks to you," Ryan snarled, pacing. "Now, you're here to mop floors, not give lectures. You should remember that." He moved closer, his face twisted in a mix of fury and disbelief. "That's your problem," Emily said quietly, her voice calm despite the fire in her chest. "You think you're better than everyone else. You think your title gives you permission to step on people." Ryan narrowed his eyes, and then he said it. The words spilled out of his mouth like acid, too fast to stop. "You're just the help. That's all you'll ever be. You and people like you, that's all you're good for." The room went silent. The words hung in the air like smoke from a slow-burning fire, poisonous, inescapable. Emily didn't move. Her face didn't crack. She had waited for this. Down the hall, behind a glass-paneled office with blinds half drawn, Michael Stone stood in silence, looking out at the skyline. He hadn't moved in several minutes. His reflection in the window looked heavier than usual, his posture tighter, his jaw clenched just enough to betray thought. Moments earlier, he'd heard something. Not through rumor. Not through complaint. Through the walls. He'd been standing in his office when he heard Ryan's voice, unmistakably dismissive, cutting through the thin veneer of professionalism he wore like cologne. He had heard enough. Michael walked to his desk and pressed a button on his intercom. "Ryan," he said, voice measured, "come to my office now." Ryan entered a few minutes later, his usual swagger slowed but not gone. He smiled as he stepped in, trying to gauge the temperature in the room. "You wanted to see me?" he said, closing the door behind him. Michael didn't smile. He didn't even move from behind his desk. "Have a seat." Ryan hesitated only a second before sitting. Michael's eyes stayed fixed on him, not with anger, but with scrutiny. "I've known you a long time, Ryan," Michael began. "Almost 6 years. 7 next month," Ryan added quickly, trying to appear relaxed. Michael ignored the correction. "And in those years, I've trusted you with a lot. Staff, budgets, leadership roles. You've never been the loudest voice in the room, but you've been effective." Ryan gave a polite nod. "I try to lead by results." Michael sat forward slowly, folding his hands. His voice dropped in volume, but not in intensity. "Tell me something. How do you treat the people under you when you think no one's watching?" Ryan blinked, caught off guard. I mean, I treat everyone fairly. I hold people to the same standard, regardless of their role." "Do you?" Michael asked, raising one eyebrow. "Even if their job is to clean the floor?" Ryan gave a short chuckle, nervous now. "Of course, Emily. She's fine. Quiet. Keeps to herself. Does her job. I don't have any issues with her." Michael nodded slightly, still watching. "I heard something earlier today," he said. "Something I wasn't supposed to hear." Ryan's face twitched. "Oh?" A tone, a comment, not loud, but sharp, and familiar enough to catch my attention. Michael leaned back, letting silence fill the space. "I'm going to ask you plainly. Is there anything going on with you and Emily that I need to know about?" Ryan shifted in his seat. "Not at all. Nothing serious. I mean, she might have misunderstood something I said. It happens. You know how people can be sensitive." Michael's gaze narrowed. "Sensitive?" Ryan raised both hands lightly. "Look, I didn't say anything inappropriate. Maybe I was a bit sarcastic, but it wasn't meant to offend. I was just being real." Michael sat forward again. "And what does being real mean to you, Ryan?" Ryan hesitated. "It means I don't sugarcoat things. I call it like I see it." Michael's expression didn't change, but his next words cut closer. "Calling someone lucky to have a job isn't real. It's condescending, especially when it's directed at someone who already gets overlooked every day." Ryan stiffened. "I didn't say that exactly," he muttered. "You didn't need to," Michael replied quietly. "Your tone did." Silence again. Michael stood and walked slowly to the window. His voice was low but firm. "I've built Fairbrooke on values I actually believe in. Not the kind we print on onboarding packets, real ones, like respect." He turned to face Ryan again. "I'm watching now, closely, and if there's more to this story, I'll find it. If there's a pattern here, it'll show." Ryan swallowed hard. "Michael, I swear, there's nothing to worry about. You've known me for years. I don't cross lines." Michael walked back to his desk. "I want to believe that," he said. "I do." He picked up a pen, clicked it once, then set it down. "But if you're lying, if even one more complaint comes across my desk, you won't get another conversation. You'll get a severance package." Ryan stood up, trying to maintain composure. "You have my word. Nothing like that will happen." Again, Michael's eyes held his for a beat longer. "It better not." Ryan nodded quickly, gave a stiff smile, and left the room. Ryan Blake nearly tripped over his own feet as he stumbled out of Michael Stone's office. His heart pounded louder than his shoes on the polished floors of Fairbrooke Corporate Tower. The door clicked shut behind him, severing the tense conversation like a blade through silk. His face flushed with embarrassment. Inside, the CEO's jaw was tight. His hands rested on the edge of his sleek mahogany desk. A long sigh escaped him, not one of relief, but the kind born from clarity. This wasn't over, not yet. The final decision was forming, one layer at a time, and the next move would be decisive. Outside, just around the corner, Emily Grant stood quietly. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but she hadn't needed to try either. The door hadn't fully closed, and the hallway echoed like a whispering canyon. Her pulse thudded in her throat as she watched Ryan storm past. He didn't look at her, not once. His jaw clenched, eyes fixed forward, lips a tight, angry line. But Emily didn't move. She didn't need to. Because she knew sooner than he realized the game would end. And this time, he wouldn't be the one writing the rules. The next morning, Emily arrived early. Earlier than the security guard on the first shift. Earlier than the receptionist who usually unlocked the glass doors. She stepped into the hushed corridors of Fairbrooke Corporate Tower with the same cart, same gloves, same uniform, but something about the air was different. It wasn't in her steps. It was in the silence. In the watchful glances from a few coworkers who passed her in the halls and didn't immediately look away. In the subtle shift in how long their eyes lingered. Something had changed. And people could feel it, even if they didn't yet understand it. Emily kept her face calm, composed, neutral. But inside, the storm had already arrived. She wheeled her cart toward the executive floor, her hands firm on the handle, her mind sharper than ever. Every sound seemed louder this morning. The rubber. Wheels rolling over the tile, the soft click of her badge at the elevator, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. When she reached Ryan Blake's office, the door was, as always, open just enough to suggest casual disinterest. But as she stepped in, it felt like stepping into a war zone she'd seen 100 times before. Coffee stains traced thin lines. Across the desk, crumbs of what looked like a croissant, or maybe something less delicate, were crushed into the carpet. A half-eaten sandwich sat, unrefrigerated, on the edge of a pile of folders. Takeout wrappers were shoved haphazardly into the trash, some spilling onto the floor. It was chaos. It was expected, and it was deliberate. Ryan didn't look up. He was already typing furiously at his keyboard, as if whatever email he was composing was the most urgent matter in the world. "Morning, Emily," he said, voice flat, distracted. "Made a bit of a mess again. You can take care of it, yeah?" "Thanks." She paused. Her eyes swept the room, every careless detail, every discarded napkin and soiled coffee cup, and she took it all in like evidence. Because it was. And today, it wasn't just another chore. Today, it was the final piece. She bent slowly to her knees and began gathering the trash, her motions precise. Her fingers touched the floor, but her ears were higher than ever. And then Ryan's phone buzzed. He reached for it with the same lazy hand he used to scatter the mess in front of him. "Michael Stone," he said under his breath, before, clearing his throat. His voice instantly transformed, oiled with false charm. "Hey, Michael, what's going on?" Emily froze but subtly. She kept wiping crumbs from under the desk, head bowed. "Ryan," Michael's voice echoed from the speaker, calm, firm, steady. "I need you to come to my office." Ryan straightened in his chair, shoulders stiffening. "Sure thing, something up?" "And bring Emily with you." There was a pause, a long one. "Emily?" Ryan echoed, glancing toward her, his smile twitching uneasily. "That's right," Michael said. Now, the line clicked dead. Ryan looked at his phone as if trying to process whether what he heard was real. His fingers fumbled to set it back on the desk. Then he turned toward her, face tight, trying too hard to appear unfazed. "Well," he said, forcing a chuckle. "Looks like the boss wants to see us both." Emily stood slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. "Then let's not keep him waiting." The hallway to Michael's office had never felt longer. They walked side by side, but Ryan's steps were uneven, slower than usual. The echo of their shoes filled the space between them, but neither spoke. The usual arrogance that clung to Ryan like a second suit had peeled away, layer by layer. And Emily? Emily was a fortress. Her expression didn't flicker, her eyes didn't wander. She was a woman walking into something she had rehearsed in her head 1,000 times. When they reached the glass doors of the executive suite, they were already open. Michael Stone sat behind his desk, pristine and polished. Sunlight spilled across the floor through tall windows, making the hardwood gleam like gold. Not a single paper sat out of place, not a single file out of line. "Come in," Michael said, his voice steady. Emily entered first and took a seat across from him. Her hands rested calmly in her lap. Ryan followed more cautiously than before. He pulled the chair out slowly and sat, adjusting his sleeves like he was still performing. "Michael, I wasn't expecting." "Sit down, Ryan," Michael said, cutting him off without looking. "Up," Ryan obeyed. Michael finally looked up. "I called you both here," he began, leaning back in his chair, "because something's been happening in this building. Something I haven't addressed. But I can't ignore it any longer." His gaze settled on Ryan. "And you, Ryan, are at the center of it." Ryan blinked, shaking his head slightly. "Wait, hold on. If this is about yesterday's misunderstanding," Michael raised a hand. "It wasn't a misunderstanding." He leaned forward now, voice cooler. "It was a pattern. A pattern of behavior that's been building quietly for some time." Ryan glanced at Emily, then back at Michael. "I think there's been some miscommunication. I mean, Emily and we've had a few casual conversations. Nothing serious." Emily stayed silent. Michael folded his hands together. "Ryan, I overheard you. Yesterday. I heard every word." Ryan's face paled. He began, but Michael pressed on. "And that wasn't the only thing. Emily has been documenting your behavior, the messes, the remarks, the disrespect. It's all right here." He opened the folder and slid it across the desk toward Ryan. "Emily has been keeping a detailed account of everything, every passive-aggressive remark, every time you treated her like she was beneath you, every stain you left expecting someone else to fix. It's all there." Ryan opened the folder with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the photos, the transcripts, the notes written with precision and restraint. The weight of it hit him like a stone wall. "This is out of context," he said quickly, his voice rising. "She's twisting it. We joke, everyone jokes. Calling someone's job their limit in life, that's your version of joking?" Michael asked coldly. "Saying they should be grateful to clean up after you, that's banter?" "I didn't mean it like that," Ryan snapped. "You know me. I've worked here for years. I've sacrificed for this company." Michael rose from his seat slowly, walking around the desk until he stood in front of Ryan. "And what you've shown is that no title, no years of service, can excuse the way you treat people." Ryan shot up from his chair. "You're throwing me away because of her." "No," Michael said. "I'm throwing you out because of you." Ryan's eyes flashed. "You'll regret this." Michael crossed his arms. "I regret that I didn't act sooner." Ryan looked to Emily, desperate, unmoored. But she didn't return the glance. She sat still, composed, and completely silent. It was no longer her burden. Michael turned to the intercom and pressed a button. "Security, please escort Mr. Blake out of the building." "You're ruining my career," Ryan barked. "No," Michael replied calmly. "You did that all by yourself." Moments later, security arrived. Ryan tried one last time to speak, to salvage what little he thought he had left. But no one was listening anymore, not even the silence. He was escorted out. And with him, the rot was finally cut away. The door clicked shut. For a long moment, the office was still. Emily exhaled slowly. The tightness in her shoulders eased. Michael sat down, his face softening. "Thank you," he said. "That took more courage than most people here have ever shown." "I wasn't trying to be brave," Emily said. "I was trying to do what was right." He nodded. "That's exactly why it mattered." Michael looked down at the closed folder for a moment, then back up. "We failed you, Emily. I failed you. I should have seen this earlier. People like him are good at hiding, she said. Until they stop trying. Michael leaned forward. Eyes steady. You've shown incredible strength. And we need more people like you here. I'd like to offer you a position full-time, administrative. Emily blinked. What? Permanent. Desk job, benefits, growth. You've proven. Your value goes far beyond any label. We need people who lead with heart and clarity. You are that person. Emily sat back, overwhelmed. I'll need time to think. Take all the time you need, Michael said with a small smile. But I'd be honored to have you on the team. As Emily walked out of that office, not as the cleaner, not as the quiet one in the background, but as a woman who stood her ground, something shifted inside her. It wasn't just about exposing Ryan. It was about reclaiming her voice. And now it echoed with power. As Emily turned the corner, she saw him, Ryan Blake. He stood inside his office, the door slightly ajar, hunched over his desk. Papers were being shoved into a cardboard box with jerky, irritated movements. His shoulders were stiff. The blinds behind him were half closed, casting sharp lines of shadow across the room. The space, once immaculately kept, now looked chaotic and external. Reflection of the storm within him. Ryan didn't look up right away, too focused on cramming folders, chargers, and trinkets into his box like a man erasing his own existence. But he must have sensed her, because slowly he raised his head. Their eyes met. The look he gave her wasn't surprise. It was resentment. His face was red, not just from embarrassment, but something deeper. Humiliation, disbelief, anger that clung to him like a second skin. It was a look Emily had seen before, in other places from other people, but never this close, never this exposed. She paused at the threshold of his office. There was nothing she needed to say. Not really. Her presence alone was enough. But something made her stop. Maybe it was the weight of everything that had led to this moment. Maybe it was the look on Ryan's face that made her want to stand still, just for a second longer. Ryan's hands froze over the box. For a moment, neither of them spoke. And then, finally, he broke the silence. "Congratulations," he muttered. Not quite looking at her. "You got what you wanted." Emily tilted her head slightly, her voice calm, even. "What I wanted." Her tone wasn't mocking, but it made Ryan bristle. "All I ever wanted was respect." Ryan scoffed, tossing a bundle of papers into the box with unnecessary force. "Respect?" he repeated bitterly. "Is that what this is about now?" He shook his head, pacing once behind the desk like a caged animal. No, this was never about respect. This was about you playing victim. About making me the villain. His voice cracked with disbelief as he motioned around the office. "I've been here for over a decade, Emily. I've worked my ass off for this company. Now I'm being walked out like I'm some ... Some threat because of you?" Emily stepped a little further into the room, just inside the doorframe. Her voice didn't rise. She didn't have to. "You're being walked out because of your choices," she said quietly. "Not mine." Ryan's eyes snapped up. His expression hardened. "Don't pretend like you weren't part of this. Bill used you. He sent you in here like some undercover spy to take me down." Emily shook her head. "No. One sent me to take you down. You did that all by yourself. I was just here doing my job. You gave me more to document than I ever expected." That hit harder than he let on. His jaw clenched. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" He spat suddenly, his voice rising. "You think catching me on a bad day makes you some kind of hero?" "I don't think I'm better than anyone," Emily said evenly. "But I do think everyone deserves dignity. And you made it clear you don't believe that." Ryan's hands balled into fists. The cardboard box trembled slightly on the desk beneath his grip. "You've always looked down on me," he growled. "No," Emily corrected gently. "You looked down on me. I just finally stopped letting it slide." That silenced him for a beat. He stared at her, eyes searching her face for something remorse, maybe. A crack in the armor. But Emily had nothing left to offer him. His chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. "So what now?" he muttered, his voice hoarse. "I walk out of here and disappear?" She shrugged. "That's up to you. You can learn something from this, or you can stay angry. But either way, you don't get to treat people like that anymore." "Not here." He looked away. Ryan stared down at the box, his expression unreadable. Then he slammed the lid shut with a loud thud that echoed through the quiet room. He picked it up, turned his back to her, and walked away. Emily had stood her ground. She had exposed the truth. And in doing so, she had reclaimed something that couldn't be measured in promotions or praise, her dignity. What Ryan chose to carry with him as he exited the company, his bitterness, his shame, his refusal to reflect, was no longer her concern. That burden belonged to him now. She walked through the open space of Fairbrooke Corporate Tower, past whispers that hushed as she passed, past glances that flicked away a second too late. They didn't bother her. There was no anger in those looks, just curiosity, maybe even admiration. People knew something had shifted. They just didn't know how deeply. The building felt different, lighter. It was as if someone had finally opened a window in a room that had been stifling for years. Ryan was gone. And with him, the invisible weight he'd draped across the office like a fog had lifted. Emily didn't need a ceremony to mark the change. She felt it in the way people moved through the halls, now heads up, voices free of caution, laughter blooming again in the break room. But Emily's journey wasn't finished. Not yet. Later that afternoon, Michael Stone, CEO of Fairbrooke, and the man who had finally listened, asked to see her. His tone over the phone had carried a certain finality, a gravity that told her this meeting would not be like the others. She'd spent the morning turning over the offer he'd made. An opportunity. One she had never imagined would be extended to someone like her. She had cleaned this building room by room, day by day, quietly for years. She had gone unnoticed until now, as she stepped onto the executive floor, she felt none of the intimidation that once hung over these halls. She walked with purpose now, confidence, ownership. Michael's office door was open. He was seated behind his sleek desk, a figure of control and composure. Yet there was a warmth to him today that was different from the cold efficiency he often projected. "Emily," he said, gesturing with a nod. "Come in." She entered, took a seat across from him, and placed her hands calmly on her lap. Her eyes met his without hesitation. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said, her voice steady. Michael gave a small nod, his expression open and curious. "And?" "I appreciate it. More than you know. It's not every day someone in my position gets the chance to really rise." Michael didn't interrupt. He simply listened. "This place," Emily continued, "hasn't always been kind to me. I've been invisible here for a long time, and I've seen things, experienced things that made me wonder if I belonged." Michael's eyes darkened with understanding. "Especially with Ryan," he said. "What happened to you wasn't right. And I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to leave and start fresh somewhere else." Emily exhaled slowly, letting his words settle. She had thought about leaving. There had been a temptation to find a new beginning in a place where no one knew her history, where her past didn't walk the halls beside her, whispering her old title. But she had also thought about the other side of that coin, what it meant to stay. To remain in the place where she had earned her respect not through a title, but through resilience. Where she had forced people to look again. Where she had made her voice impossible to ignore. "I've worked hard to get to this point," Emily said. "And I think there's more I can do. More I want to do." Michael leaned forward, listening more intently now. "You've given me an opportunity," she said. "And I've decided to accept it." A slow, genuine smile spread across Michael's face. "I'm glad to hear that. You've shown incredible strength, Emily. I have no doubt you'll excel in this new role." Emily returned the smile, softer but just as real. "It took me a long time to see what I was capable of. But now that I have, I want to help change things. I want to make sure what happened with Ryan doesn't happen to anyone else." "That's exactly why I offered you the position," Michael replied. "You've lived the problems this company needs to solve, and you don't back down. That's rare. That's leadership." Emily's eyes misted slightly, but she blinked it away. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Michael stood and extended his hand. "Let's get started then." Emily stood and shook it, her grip confident, her gaze unwavering. The handshake wasn't just formal, it was symbolic. A passing of the torch. "This is the beginning of something new," he said. Emily nodded. "And the end of something long overdue," Michael smiled. "HR will have everything ready for you tomorrow. But tonight, go home, celebrate. You've earned this." "I will," she said, turning toward the door. As she stepped into the hallway, she felt the shift again. But this time, it wasn't just in the air, it was in her. She had stepped out of the background and into her power. She wasn't here to clean up after people anymore. She was here to lead. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped in alone. As the floors disappeared behind her, replaced by glass and skyline, Emily allowed herself a quiet smile. She had fought to be seen, fought to be respected, and now? She was more than they had ever expected. She was ready to lead, ready to rise, ready to leave her mark. And this was just the beginning. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support means everything.